Friends, today's NRI Samai program from Los Angeles brought to you commercial free by listeners like you. Your generous donations make possible for us to stay commercial free, and today's show is pre-recorded. If you have a question for the guest, please send an email to nrisamai@gmail.com. We will follow up with the guest and find the answer for you. Thank you for your support.
Uh, Hello to all the listeners on NRSMA. If you remember, just a few weeks or few months ago, India has seen all the way from the east to the north to the south, there were natural disasters. And quite often we find that amidst these disasters, there's a lot of chaos and a lot of crucial information gets lost. Lack of coordination or communication or any sort of coherence is difficult to establish. But even within this kind of a chaotic situation, someone sitting miles away from all these disasters is able to look at something that is very important in the time of these kind of disasters. That is the information that's freely flowing either over the internet or via the phone call that is made or the SMS messages that are being sent out or the video recordings that are being sent. And all this information is being analyzed in such a way that it can help the teams working on the ground to properly redirect their relief material or provide the timely help to the people who are in most need at that point in time. So today we have on our show Hemant Purohit, who basically lives in the United States but has been involved with an organization called Voice and has been helping Voice in a very unique way. So we'll try to find out what Hemant does, how he got involved, and also about how people living in the U.S., NRIs basically, can also help in the time of disasters, not just financially, but even otherwise. So welcome, Hemant, to our show.
Thank you, Suresh. I really appreciate being here.
Thank you. So Hemant, first and foremost, before we get started, can you tell us what Voice is about, the organization Voice, and how you got involved in the organization?
Absolutely. First of all, Voice is about, it's an acronym standing for Volunteers Online for Impact in Crisis and Emergencies. So the inception of Voice as an identity came into limelight after JK flood relief when we were discussing about helping the way we help for JK flood relief, and we do it for other disasters across India, or like in fact beyond India. How can that model be replicated? And that was the purpose of having that inception. However, the history of this goes back to even last year's Uttarakhand floods. So some of the friends in Voice, we actually got connected, in fact, for JK flood relief also because we guys had volunteer last year. So some of us, like myself, was involved for crisis mapping. Other folks, other friends in Voice, they were involved in redirection of important call messages to the concerned authorities, things of that nature, and creating kind of a higher situational awareness which can be utilized for any meaningful action. So that's what the history of Voice is, that we were connected earlier in prior disaster responses like Uttarakhand flood, Faleen cyclone, and then this time again the Jammu Kashmir.
I see. And how did you get introduced to Voice?
So, yeah, I think this is interesting to me. So I'm basically a computational social scientist at NOISIS. NOISIS stands for Ohio Center of Excellence in Knowledgeable Computing. So we have a project here from U.S. National Science Foundation on how can you improve disaster response, emergency response during this really chaotic situation by leveraging things which come from citizen sensors. That's social media. So can we design some actionable ways from in such a way that you can mine that massive data which is flowing there, out of the important nuggets which adds into situational awareness and helps in the coordination. So that's how my interest for this kind of crisis responses goes. And I particularly got involved starting with the crisis mapping last year. So I coordinated our teams where I was also the key coordinator, and we created crisis maps during Uttarakhand floods with Google Crisis Response as well. So we had a collaboration then we did in Falin cyclone, and this time after learning from those two experiences, we learned that right now, in fact, during the JK flood relief, when we guys got connected, initially some of us friends who had, earlier responded during Falin and Uttarakhand, so we quickly engaged and quickly figured out what we should be doing, and there was immediate planning of here are the 1, 2, and 3 tasks that we should probably focus on rather than overusing the technology at this point, and think about how can we start bringing technology to assist us. So rather than creating a just tech-driven response, rather than that, it should be tech-assisted response. And so we guys, because we had experience from past times, so we learned that quickly and had this thing with us. We had NGOs, folks as well with us, and they said, well, what we need at this point of time is not a crisis map, a situation awareness map, because the reason is we do not have access to these maps at that point. So you guys would be working, but it may not be helpful because it's a very volatile situation right now. And communication lines were down. So in fact, what we did was, well, what we should do at this point is how can we transform these calls which are coming in for rescues, we mine them, that's number A. And number B, how can we transform this public goodwill that everyone would be very emotional and want to help, but that help does not get transformed usually in the systematic way that coordination would be helpful. For example, people would go and donate old clothes. While clothes are not really needed, what may have been needed is maybe the undergarments or things for food packets like dry food. You are not needing even the food which will be not sustaining for a while. So these are the kind of things which come as a point of how you minimize this mismatch for coordination for what is needed versus what is offered. So the very key motto that we started this JK Flood Relief was that this is our first objective, that we need to ensure however far we are sitting, doesn't matter. What we can do is we can quickly, and in the team there were folks like with the technology background as well as this kind of background where network was involved, as well as the experience NG folks. So Goonj and Uday Foundation, so folks from there, they were on board. So that also brought us, some experience of, and as well as we had some folks with earlier disaster management experience, the formal community members. So that kind of gives a good solid foundation to the team that how it can start with. And so having that foundation with us, we learned that this is what we should be doing. We designed our task. We learned about the task that the way we were designing, we were not like a really big team initially. So we created those different task types, that there will be the different task categories. And we will do distributed coordination, like it would be a sort of distributed leadership rather than a centralized leadership, that everything has to pass from that. No. Rather, what we did was we created this different task categories in which we gave enough autonomy to people who were working in those different task categories to make their decisions which were appropriate, while at the same time also share what was needed, what were the challenges that need to be addressed, and then we can plan for solving those challenges and tackle efficiently across the team. So that was the way we kind of started with, and we employed this kind of coordination strategy. Then we brought in technology that not every task category would be needing, technology. For example, people who were establishing collection centers, they were coordinating in an offline way quite a lot. However, they needed the online teams to ensure that we can maximize the spread of this information about the collection center to as many people as possible. So that was one thing. Another was getting the partners on board. So we had overall nearly 25 to 30 organizations involved at the end of almost a month. And that actually helped. The reason was the scale of disaster was to such a level that we could not, just deal with transforming public goodwill into action. Rather, we would also need a support from bodies which can meet the requirements of large scale. So that worked in favor that within 1 week we were able to really provide relief of tons of food, tons of clothes, and so on. So that's how we kind of, you can see that how we coordinated. But the most important key was what is needed and what is offered. So what is needed, that sourcing was based on our NGOs and our partners on ground. And what is offered was in the collection center as well as the online teams who were ensuring how we could, in the best way, spread this information to public.
Friends, NRI Samay is a non-profit independent alternate media from Los Angeles, USA, which brings positive stories from grassroots activists from all corners of India and across the world. NRI Samay does not rely on corporate funding and our shows are commercial free. We only rely on your donations. Corporate funded media is driven by the TRP rating and profits are blurring the distinction between news and entertainment. Why do our news channels talk so much about cricket, movies, accidents, popular figures' personal lives, babies of heroines, gossips, etc., while they should be covering the struggles of people, inequality in our society, rural issues, and border security issues? Why did our media raise some corruption crusaders to the sky on one day and shut them off completely when graft charges were raised on those corporate sponsors? Media relies so much on the corporate funding and government blessings that they cannot report independently. NRI Samay is different. We don't accept funds from any corporations and hence our shows are commercial free. We completely rely on donations from you. Please consider donating to NRI Samay and please go to nrisamay.com and donate generously. This is the only way together that we can continue NRI Samay. All donations are kept transparent on nrisamay.com. And if you have any questions, please write to nrisamay@gmail.com.
I see. So can we just take a specific example? Like let's say you are dealing with Jammu and Kashmir relief efforts, right?
Right.
And then
So,
you had I think for at least a month or so, the media was covering the situation there. I would say pretty
Right.
consistently. After that, the media lost the focus and the relief efforts got a little bit difficult simply because the information was not freely flowing. So how would you approach this situation and try to bridge that gap?
Mhm, mhm. So in that, obviously, the engagement with the right set of users that come into action. So one thing was we had built the credibility. We started early. We understood this communication things a bit earlier that we need to establish a credibility right away. And so within 2 days, we were up and we had a web presence. And web presence also credible presence. In fact, the media stories which were getting out, they were actually preceded, some of them, by what, in fact, the resources we had put out. So if you look at the initial stories about the JK flood relief, you will see that there was the jkfloodrelief.org actually being mentioned. And the reason was we were proactive in thinking about it, that we need to establish a communication identity. So now what happens is, since credibility is established, so people listen. And then people will follow that, yes. And another thing was we were ensuring communication is as clear as possible and as actionable as possible. So when people find things actionable and very clear, then they really go and act on it. For example, every day we had a poster up. People will get up at 6 o'clock. We will have a poster up by our US team, like myself or my other colleagues. We'll be putting the poster in the night itself. And we will ensure that people get up, they see these messages. By that time, messages enough spread in the network that they get up and they see the first thing is the actionable thing that they can do. So these were the kind of things you can say we were employing, and it was kind of a collective thinking and planning that every night before in India time zone, they will obviously for us here in the US, it would be morning time, and we would be having a meeting, a short meeting, not short meeting per se as a formal meeting like on telephone call, but like on mails, because we were doing distributed coordination, so we were able to update over a mail thread chain where we're discussing about these were the challenges and this is the plan for the next day. This is how we have to work, and this is what we need to spread. So it's basically spread, for example, medical supplies, to be specific, right? So medical supplies, now if medical supplies have been met by, let's say, an organization, a corporate partner, then you don't need it. Then what you need is actually what are the other missing things? What are the other complementary things? For example, the hygiene requirements for women and children, infants, babies. So how can we tackle that? What about the baby food? So things of this nature, which we were able to source from our on-ground partners, they were able to inform us about these things. Then we had here a team which was able to think about it, brainstorm it in a meaningful way, whether this can be timely delivered over there, this cannot be delivered, whether people will come and donate in this much time, what's going to happen. So this is the kind of way of figuring out how best we could figure out this, the way of what will be needed and what people gonna offer. But the most important part here is, yes, ensuring that how can you, number is, of course, understanding what are the key requirements, but number two is also informing, engaging with people in the right way. And so once we had a credible identity, after that we had an easier way of connecting with people. But at the same time, we employed some different technologies as well. For example, we used our Twitter's technology, where in Twitter's technology, we are able to target the influencers, the specific types of influencers. For example, people who were being heard the most by the public. Those kind of users, like emerging users, those influencers, people who had earlier engaged with us, and they are actually some sort of celebrities. They are influential already in the network. So engaging with them, and then actually they also propagating the right sort of information, I think that worked very well for us in that sense. So that was one of the way you could see that how tech assistant response can improve or help the coordination. The other thing was, not related to this question that you asked, but that would be for SOS redirection. That how, that was other piece, like relief coordination was our major objective, but we learned that this was a rescue phase that was being elongated for a while, and what we're going to do. So we thought of this SOS calls redirection because we were seeing these kind of messages on Twitter flowing. Where people, J.K. flood was kind of a unique situation also in a way that relatives of people who were stranded, they knew where was the location of their family members. And so, well, if they are informing about these things, can it be mined and can't it be redirected to the rescue team? So that's where then the technology played a role. That, well, can we mine these? So one thing was Twitter team, they created a template which provided a sort of a smart feed dedicated for filtering to the ADGPI team, the Army's team. Army had specifically dedicated 2 officers for this, in fact. So that was, and they were able to trace in these calls which were going to them. Now the point was, however, it's due to the psychology of stressful times, people do not follow the norms. It always happens. People do not follow the norms. So what else we can do? So we quickly deployed a semantic filtering technique that we have here at Noesis in that project that I was telling you earlier. So using Twitter, we quickly pulled what kind of messages in the ongoing stream were actually talking about need to be rescued. So we had this filtered stream of need to rescue call messages, and then we had pre-built this construct, that the template that we had dedicated for ADGPI. So all we had, our volunteers had to do was click on it. So click on it, and then it goes, if you figured this is the call, click on it, and then it's going to take you to that particular type of constructed template and the tweet. So then it's going to appear for the ADGPI.
I see.
That was another way you could see how technology could play a role. Now, there was a massive amounts of data was flowing, right? Not everything was relevant. And this small samples out of this massive flow of data was useful. And how can we mine it? So that played a great role. And the third thing, again, not related to this topic, but related to another technology topic, that was about Google Person Finder. So we were, in fact, ensuring how we could source this data. So these messages was one of the ways. Another important thing was the calls. There was the call data summaries via SMS utility than from the ASL. So they had collaborated with us. And so via the SMS utility, people were able to post the number that this is the number of the user and this is the user which is missing and find this user. So it's a kind of, they created a template again that find user and then whatever number, that kind of thing. So by creating that, they got a lot of data about it. And so once they got the data about us, then they were giving to our team. So our Person Finder team dedicated for transformation, what they were doing was looking at this data, transform it into the Person Finder's input, and then Person Finder will import this kind of data in the Person Finder. So in the Person Finder, if you search for the name of the user, you can see the status of that user, that missing user, like that, and the number of the users.
And who was giving you the numbers to begin with?
The numbers to begin, that was the cell data company, AirCell.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
And that is why, Suresh, one of the key thing here is that, and after doing all this, the whole effort, like in fact you said, when in fact media does not pay much attention, and this happened for us in the Northeast India floods. So that was one of the reason also why we transformed and got bigger, that we need not to just respond to JK floods. Now we need to do, can we do it across India? And so for North India, East India floods, there wasn't the media attention. So how we could bring the attention? So since we had a identity established, the credibility established, so that helped us. However, the key important part is the trust that citizens build when you provide a very clear communicated needs, clear communicated points that this is what is being done. And another major thing in the communication was accountability. We maintain accountability of each and every single thing that we were doing and posted it back to on the web. So back to users that this is what has been done, this is what has been done, this is what has been done. So there is this feedback of, that what has been done. That also helps. Again, so via blog, using blogs we were able to, and then again via social media we were able to channelize. So this accountability also helps, maintaining how performing or how deliverable the team is, or how deliverable the work is going on. And so if people see that, they definitely come forward and they help. So that works. So even media attention is not there. If accountability is there, and if you have established an identity, it helps to build the presence and, get attention from people, to provide the relief. So I think we provided like to 3 villages in Northeast India floods as well to relief in Assam, and now in Meghalaya there's another relief work under progress as well.
Right. Now, typically, how many hours were you guys working at the peak of the disaster, and also once, let's say, the water receded and the relief efforts really kicked in? How much did it? How much time were you guys spending on this?
So initially it happened. Initially it was like 24/7. Because everything had to be, brought into action. So initially, this was really the situation, like 24/7, almost 20. So we tried to keep the work all going on for 24/7, but like the teammates, they kind of back and forth went in that we asked them intentionally, yeah, you should go, you should take rest, and so on. So initially, this was really the situation. We were on the toes to ensure things get into right shape, like we all pieces of communication, whether to the new partners, getting the new partners on board, getting the technology working fine, getting the messages redirections, things of this nature, which are like very important in the volatile situation. And then sourcing also the needs, and then providing the relief needs information to citizens as effectively as possible, as effectively as communicating with them. So initially things were like too many, and of course team was trying to take everything on and like high priority action. So it was very high priority, but after that, yes, we had work, and then we managed well, like because of the distributed coordination. We had our first call on phone actually after 10 days of work, and by that time we had in fact delivered a massive amount of relief already. And before that, we were just communicating. We were trying to communicate as effectively as possible. We had a dedicated team coordinators, which could actually ensure the communication and the shared awareness is maintained across the teams. However, the most important part is the accountability, which, to my personal opinion, that's very important, because citizens or partners or organizations, whoever you bring on board, if they can see the impact of what they have provided, what they have helped, then they're going to come back, and they're sure going to support as much as possible in the future too. So that piece was also very critical. So in our team, we had the folks with very high positions in the management of very well-known companies, and they had the insights of this nature to bring to the board. So that was also very useful.
I see. And if so, after the disaster is all if let's say the relief work is all done, is there obviously with every such incident you are learning, and there's probably scope for things to be done better, and not only from a volunteering organization point of view. Is there anything that you work with the government authorities as well?
Yes, very good point. Yeah. So in fact, actually, the initiation for Meghalaya's work, in that actually the way we started for Northeast India flood was in fact through a formal engagement. We were informed by a formal folks to tell us about the situation, and then they had asked that, can you guys do what you did in JK here? And so that was the starting point of the conversation, that well, now this is an opportunity that is the way we are discussing to scale what we have done here and create a model so that it can be replicated across different places. And so in fact it started from there. And so we believe that having the partners on board is critical, because that essentially helps in many different ways. Like if, for example, if you have the corporates on board. For example, right now we have Indian Medical Association, which happily came on board as a permanent partner to us. So that's a very great thing, that if there is a trust of this kind, then during the onset of disaster, like a new disaster, this can be leveraged. So that's why having the formal engagement is also critical. Formal engagement means the formal response communities engagement, like government. So government, because they have their protocols, their SOPs, like standard operating procedures, the way they do things. So certainly they can, their work can be benefited by this kind of citizen-driven response efforts. So we believe that having this kind of partners is a critical piece of organizing any response effort.
I see. Yeah. All right. Well, that was a wealth of information there, Hemant. But before I let you go, if people in the U.S. would like to work with you guys, engage with you in the future, unfortunately, this is not the only time there are going to be natural disasters.
Yeah. Right.
So how can they get in touch with you guys?
So we have, in fact, on the website. So now jkfloodrelief.org, we actually created it as a incrisisrelief.com, so that the incrisisrelief.org. So in crisis is standing for like indiancrisisrelief.org. So it's basically to make it a bit more generic rather than just JK Flood Relief. But basically JK Flood Relief will also redirect over there. You will see that. So yes, you can contact us over there. So we have a sign-up form, and in fact we had whoever had approached us using volunteer sign-up forms, and we had engaged with them. Also on Twitter, you can help us. So this is one of the ways. Like I was sitting so much far, however, because of technology, we all are very much connected. So it doesn't matter whether I'm here or our friends in the team, they are in India. And still we can help here. And I was not like only person from US. There were like a couple of others as well from US, and we just worked, like I was telling, we were in the 24/7 fashion. We were able to work it out. So from here we were able to help them in the India team as well. So whoever wants to participate and join in effort, they should definitely go and sign up. And so by the sign up, then we are creating volunteer database in the backend. So we then can redirect, all right, based on the skills, because people have skills, of course. Some people may have website skills, some people may have social media skills, things of that nature. So some people, in fact, have this art skills that we are leveraging. So you see, we put out these posters, and we put out like a lot of campaigning, whatever material needed for that. And so it is coming all thanks to team members' skills that they were employing these kind of skills. So people can volunteer in very different kinds of whatever skills they have, and they can contribute in to such factor.
I see. And last but not the least question, what kind of technologies did you use in case any of our listeners are interested, they would like to get in touch with you? What technologies did you guys primarily use?
So one was the information filtering. So information filtering technique, so semantic. People would have heard of the semantic information filtering technique. So that we used in Twitter, where we were finding out from the text, how can I find out that it's related with a certain concept. So that was one of the thing. Other was the dedicated template-based smart feed that was from Twitter. So they had again sort of a classifier. It can be a rule-based classifier based on the template. That was one of the thing. Other was the for spreading, we were using like the influencer-based technology. So it's a network analysis. So given a network of users of how they are interacting, can I mine who are the influencers? So in Twitter, we had that already from research under that project. So we used that. Then we had a Google Person Finder in that, but there was, it's a Google Person Finder itself for technology, but it needed the data, and that's where the volunteering work was needed to format the data which can be fed into the Person Finder. And then there was the challenge was there was images of the rescued people from the relief camp. So then we had this technological challenge really. So at that place we will be needing just the volunteering. Maybe another was the crowdsourced sheets, like spreadsheets. So in fact anyone can do that. So we created like forms. So Google spreadsheets and Google forms are there. So with the forms, we were able to crowdsource the missing people info and then put into the spreadsheet, and those spreadsheets were available. And using spreadsheets, then we were feeding into again for the Person Finder.
I see.
So these were potentially the major ones that we were using. And other things were like, of course, like website and social media presence and so on.
Yeah. I see. Interesting. Well, thank you very much for all the hard work you guys did. And
thanks very much. Yes. We really appreciate and we want to thank you actually from our team to all the citizens, no matter wherever they are, for the great support. And because without that, I think it wasn't at all possible. So we want to thank from our team to everyone who can, be there, who's listening to us.
Thank you. Thank you once again, Hemant, and keep up the good work. Hopefully more people join your efforts, and may your tribe grow much bigger.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Friends, if you liked today's show, please go to youtube.com/NRI Samay and click on the subscribe button. You will get notified every time we publish a new show. And you can also like us on our social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, and Google+.